Welcome to more World of Warplanes content from the Noble Q. In this video I'm going to look at the Miles M.20, a British Tier 5 premium light fighter. Hello there, and here on the tarmac outside my hangar is the Miles M.20, a rare excursion into the lower tiers, and this comes about because Trapper73, a World of Warplanes Twitch streamer and also a fellow YouTube content producer, mentioned that when he recently acquired this aircraft he couldn't find any videos on it. So here's this one. Do be sure to give Trapper73 a follow on Twitch and subscribe to his YouTube channel. The M20 was designed as an emergency stopgap fighter, something very simple to assemble, and would have been produced if, during 1940 in the Battle of Britain, the Luftwaffe had succeeded in disrupting the production of the Spitfire and the Hurricane. That didn't happen, so this aircraft never saw operational service. In the game, it's an agile light fighter featuring 8 machine guns, familiar to you from, say, the Bristol 146, the first Spitfire, one of the Hurricanes. What we'll do now is we'll look at the numbers for this aircraft and analyse its characteristics. Here we are with a spreadsheet showing all of the Tier 5 fighters. There are 22 of them, 23 if you include the rare I-21, an aircraft you probably won't see and you're even less likely to get your hands on. If you just scroll sideways quickly, you'll see them pass before your eyes. There they go. Now, if you don't know how this spreadsheet works, use the link below. There's a video which will explain what's going on here to you. Let's talk about the gun armament on the M20, which we can see here in column C and D. And as I mentioned previously, we have 8 machine guns, .303 Brownings specifically. The rating is 11, and the range is 1444 feet, bit short but not unusual at these kinds of tiers. 25 DPS per gun, 600 rate of fire. Auto angle is a generous 4 degrees. You can be off target by that amount and the game will correct your aim for you and you'll still hit your target. However, the dispersion angle, the way the bullets spread out as they leave the muzzle of your gun, is a fairly unhealthy 0.8. It's not unusual for machine guns though. Just be aware that you're spattering, and at the extremities of your range you'll be spattering quite a few bullets into thin air. Overheat, as you would expect with machine guns, long 20 seconds. Shell velocity is not particularly high, 876, but you don't have any other weapons groups to worry about, so if you are hitting when an aircraft is banking away from you, you're hitting with everything. This this armament is, I would say, average for the tier. For instance, you've got the third best in class here, second best in class here with the Spitfire 1. The best in class is the A6M3 over here. And if we scroll right along to one of the high energy fighters, we'll see that we've got the BF-109E with a rating of 15 here, along with the P40 as well, the third best in class. So not the best weapons at tier 5, but decent. Survivability, it's a light fighter. It's not particularly robust. Actually says it's second best in class on its rating here with 250 hit points. That's useful. Survivability of 48, damage resistance of 48, and a good fire resistance of 60. Again, useful. That will certainly allow you to mount a first aid dressing kit instead of having to think about mounting a fire extinguisher as a consumable. Now we get to the characteristics which begin to determine what sort of aircraft this is. It's not particularly fast. It's not dreadful, 33 rating. It could be a little bit worse. There are some here as I scroll along, the Venom for instance, the A6M2, the A6M3, which nominally are rated worse for speed, but it's nowhere near the high energy fighters. If we just scroll along here, we start seeing these with the HE 100D-1, 45 rating there. 49 on the I-21, but you're not likely to encounter that. You can discount that, but you are likely to encounter a lot of BF-109Es, maybe fewer E3 variants, but they're still faster. You get the picture. MiG-3, P40, these are all considerably faster as I scroll along. And there's the ME-209V4 that could very well flash by you and you won't even be able to turn before it's gone off into the distance. Not a fast aircraft. Cruise speed 211. Boost maximum speed 335, which isn't great. Boost duration is 8 seconds, which is okay. Maximum dive speed of 404, which is not probably a tactic you're going to be using much, because the altitude performance, as we'll see, is not particularly great on this aircraft either. Manoeuvrability, it's decent. The rating is 80. It's sort of like the Spitfire 1 and the Spitfire 1A, but bear in mind the Spitfire 1A may come with the special pilot Charles Donovan, which transforms that aircraft and makes it highly manoeuvrable. It's not as manoeuvrable as the Venom. You probably won't see too many of those. It's slightly more manoeuvrable than the Boomerang. So far, so good. But then you start running into things like the Ki 43-2, which is vastly more manoeuvrable, as are the other two Japanese aircraft, which I'm looking at here. Then the Ziyak 1, also much more manoeuvrable. The I-80, I-180-3, again, you're not likely to see too many of those, but again, much more manoeuvrable. AD-10C2, the Aero Bonita. And then we finally come to an aircraft which we are more manoeuvrable than, but only just, the HE-100D-1, which with a manoeuvrability build might actually give you a little bit of a problem if you're not really on top of your turning skills. Then the manoeuvrability tends to drop off as we get towards the more high energy fighters. And these are the ones that you can easily outturn if your opponent makes that mistake. If they don't, they can zoom away from you by and large because they're a lot faster. Altitude performance, again, firmly in the realm of what I'm now going to say looks like a turn fighter to me. 31, it's commensurate with the turn fighters that you can see alongside it, the Spitfires, the Ki 43, the Japanese aircraft, which are actually even quite a bit worse. And as we scroll along, we can see that we don't really start seeing anything that's a lot better until we get to the HE-100D-1, which is an aircraft which is definitely to be flown as a high energy fighter. Funnily enough, one that I do tend to fly as a high energy fighter, but doesn't have great altitude performance, is Bell XP-77 or the Lag 3. But then we get to the I-21 and then the two BF-109s, and unsurprisingly the MiG-3, the P-40, the Tomahawk 2B, the Special Corsair, or prototype Corsair, and the ME-209V4 all have much greater altitude performance. And I think these figures quite definitely put this aircraft into the turn fighter bracket, and also in that bracket of old style premiums that were slightly worse than their tech tree counterparts. Of course, nowadays premiums tend to be better than their tech tree counterparts because the Wargaming, the World of Warplanes team have had a change of philosophy. We just have a look at the worst in class figures. Not going to pay too much attention to the survivability. These figures are pretty compressed, so what are pretty good figures also appear as fairly poor figures if you were to believe the red. I'm going to discount that. Not surprisingly, you can see some red appearing in the airspeed. That cruise speed is not particularly good. The boost duration, the boost figures are all compressed as well, so we can discount that. Roll rate is a bit of a surprise. It's actually pretty poor. Although, having said that, most of the British aircraft don't roll very well, as you can see. So that's something to watch out for. Somebody rolling in front of you. For instance, an HE-100D-1, if the pilot is knowledgeable, might be able to use this against you, keep rolling, and make it difficult for you to shoot him. And I mention that because I've had that experience recently in this aircraft, and you're going to see it. As we come down into altitude performance, I didn't mention the climb rate, but it is also pretty poor. And at this point, I think it should be clear that I'm going to tell you the way I play this aircraft is as a turn fighter, and I do not see the virtue in trying to build this aircraft in any other fashion. Power to weight ratio doesn't suggest to me that the aircraft has the acceleration to support a surprise speed build, for instance, and I would never recommend a tank build for a light fighter. You're just basically delaying the inevitable. You're making yourself an easy target for things which will still stay on your tail, and if they're persistent enough, and they probably will be, even with the tank build, they will shoot you down. So, old style premium. That's the message to take away from this. Firmly, in my opinion, in the turn fighter mold, and that's how I would suggest you build it. You have slots to improve the speed on the aircraft a little bit, but it's never going to be competing with the high energy fighters such as the BF-109s and the P-40s. With that, let's go and see what I did with the aircraft. Here we are back with the M20 on the tarmac outside the hangar, and my aircraft is specialised. That means I have all of the equipment and consumable slots available when you first get this aircraft. you'll find the following. You have 4 equipment slots, 2 on the airframe, but one of those is locked. You have 5 consumable slots, 2 on the airframe, and again, one of those is locked. So, as with most premiums, the disadvantage of the aircraft not being specialist is minimised by the fact that only a couple of slots are closed. Let's pop this back into specialist configuration and let's see what we've got. And unsurprisingly, you can see that what I've got here is a speed build. So gun sight to improve the accuracy of the guns with that dispersion angle of 0.8, that's pretty important. I haven't bothered, as I wouldn't do with most of my low tier aircraft, fully calibrating this, but what you can see there is we've got a 14% increase in accuracy. If you fully get that fully calibrated, it will go up to 21% increase in accuracy. The adverse effect on the pilot's resistance to injury is 12%. That will go up to 70% if you fully calibrate this piece of equipment. And then with the bonus characteristics, machine guns, they're good at causing fire, so I've got a 10% chance of that. I've also got a 5% chance of inflicting critical damage, and the pilot's resistance to injuries is improved by 5% by that final bonus characteristic. And I don't think I would re-roll this. I would probably keep those if you do want to try and cripple aircraft, and if you're thinking you're going to meet a lot of Japanese or more manoeuvrable planes, then I suppose possibly you would put on that 10% chance of inflicting critical damage. I don't think there's a great deal of virtue in putting on the accuracy improvements here, but you can if you like. With the airframe and engine, we've got a lightweight wing frame and lightweight power unit, and then I've also gone to improve the speed with a polished skin. The lightweight wing frame. Now here I have taken the time to fully calibrate this, so we've got the full effect of the piece of equipment. It's ultimate level equipment, calibrated to 478, therefore I've got an improvement of 13% in the roll manoeuvrability. Just going to move the way that this aircraft is situated. So we don't have that motorcycle it is that's flipping across the screen there. It's done that a couple of times and just caught my eye. 13% improvement in roll manoeuvrability from the lightweight wing frame, 4.2% manoeuvrability in turns improvement. The adverse effects, we've lost 6.6% of the aircraft HP. That's not so bad in this case because this actually does have a fairly good stock of hit points compared to other light fighters. They're not going to go very far if you want to go head on with a heavy fighter, which I don't recommend. And 10% adverse effect on the wing's resistance to damage. I've offset that to a degree with the first bonus characteristic. There's an improvement of 3% to the wing's resistance to critical damage. Then I've got 3% extra roll manoeuvrability and 1% cruise speed as the other characteristics. Now, I don't tend to spend a lot of time re-rolling equipment at these kinds of tiers. If I have a quick look, you could offset the loss of HP if you wanted, or you could improve the yaw manoeuvrability and roll manoeuvrability even more. And if you were trying to get that manoeuvrability up, then maybe that's what you would do. If we just look at the lightweight power unit first, this is also fully calibrated. You can see without a pilot, if you cast your eyes over here, I've got a manoeuvrability rating of 87, which is a distinct improvement from the base, and that's without a pilot, so we'll see what happens when I put a pilot in. But with this, we've got a 10% improvement in yaw manoeuvrability, 4.2% improvement in the turn. However, we've got 70% reduction in the engine's resistance to critical damage. Again, the first bonus characteristic, I've offset that 17% decrease in the engine's resistance to critical damage with an improvement by 5%. Then I've got 1% acceleration with that boost and 0%, not 0.5% improvement in cruise speed. And again, I don't tend to bother re-rolling the bonus characteristics on low tier aircraft, but if you were looking for more manoeuvrability, at the bottom there's a 2% yaw manoeuvrability characteristic, or you could pick off 1% cruise speed. That would make more sense, of course, because I've got 0.5% in one, chosen a 0.5% one, or 1% acceleration with boost. I've chosen to try and improve the speed of the aircraft by use of polished skin instead. Cruise speed, this is not fully calibrated, so I've got 6.5% improvement in cruise speed and 6.5% improvement in the acceleration when diving. Not going to be doing a lot of diving in this aircraft, I suspect, so that's not so useful. The adverse effects, the manoeuvrability of the aircraft is reduced by 2.8%, and the manoeuvrability in turns is reduced also by 2.8%. If you were to take that up to maximum, you'd get 10% cruise speed and 10% improvement in acceleration with diving, but now you'd lose 3.8% your manoeuvrability and manoeuvrability in turns. On the bonus characteristics, got 2% acceleration in diving. I would definitely drop that if I was to try and reconfigure this. 1% improvement in your manoeuvrability, another acceleration while diving. So I've got two characteristics here I really don't think of that worth having. So pick two from the other three, maybe 1% cruise speed. I would go for the 1% manoeuvrability in turns and maybe the 1% maximum speed with boost activated. So there's more you can do here. On the consumables, pretty standard layout with that kind of configuration. The survivability, as you can see, we've still got the full 60 resistance to fire. No problem in mounting a first aid dressing package, which is great because I'm not going to have to use, well, I don't feel I will have to use either fire resistance or firefighter skills with my pilot, leaving those two skill points free for something else. I like to approach my aircraft that way. Pneumatic controls assist for 10 seconds of extra manoeuvrability when I'm in a dogfight. Could be useful if I'm fighting another M20 or perhaps something that's just a little bit more manoeuvrable normally. We didn't actually talk about the controllability figure, but it's actually pretty high, so that's a good piece of a good consumable to use. Because if you can actually get into your turn quicker than an enemy that theoretically can outturn you, and be using this, you might be able to get them down before they can actually get their aircraft turning quickly enough to get you. Since it's a manoeuvrability aircraft, I've picked the emergency control system to repair damage to the critical control surfaces. Your alternatives: long delay there. UI does that sometimes. Really don't think there's any point in using the exhaust bleed inverting system. The fire resistance is already fairly high. If you're going to use gold consumables, you already know what they're all about, and you don't need me to explain to you the advantages of them. As usual with engine cooling, I get my 10 extra seconds of boost if I've got any boost at all. The alternatives here would be a restart. I think with the Term Fighter, restarting the engine is not so critical. You can still fight pretty well with your engine out and can wait for it to come back. You're not looking to make this a speed aircraft, so the improved mixture control is not for you. And then finally, definitely mount universal ammunition to improve the chances of causing fire and critical damage. And if you're using gold, then use the incendiary ammunition to increase the chance of causing fires rather than the fragmentation ammunition. Right, let's talk about pilot skills. I've brought up the dialog box for a completely unskilled pilot. This is actually a pilot that I have for the Bristol 133, just popped him into the aircraft. And this is to illustrate what you would do if you were building a pilot for this aircraft from scratch. Something I wouldn't recommend you do. If you have the M20, I would suggest you're going to use it as a crew trainer for pilots from tech tree aircraft. But nonetheless, how would we go about this? Probably a familiar trail to those of you who've watched my videos previously. Because I've built this as a term fighter and I have equipment on it for term fighting, I'm going to go straight for aerodynamics expert and then straight for aerobatics expert. And then I'm going to go and improve the accuracy of the guns, marksman 1, build towards engine guru 1, and then start building towards probably battle tested. And once I'd got to a third point, drop battle tested, get marksman 2, go back to battle tested, build up to that, probably going through, I don't really need either of the firefighters because maybe eagle-eyed for a little bit of benefit in spotting aircraft earlier, but then through battle tested, build up to engine guru 3, and then we're going to build all the way up through battle tested, if we can, up to evasive target. And then that's a very long way in the future. You'll have played this aircraft a lot, and I suspect very few of us, and I'm certainly not one of them, will be playing this aircraft a lot. So that's what I'd do with pilot skills for this aircraft. Now, let's just see the effect of this particular pilot on the manoeuvrability. Well, there's no skills, so nothing's happened. If you have access to good pilots in other aircraft, then this is what can happen. And I'm going to put on a fairly highly trained Spitfire 14 pilot. With a bit of luck, the UI will recalculate the figures. You can get up to 94, so it's pretty decent manoeuvrability. And as you saw from my choices on the equipment, you can probably squeeze a bit more out if you really concentrate on manoeuvrability, of course, with some adverse effects on other characteristics of the aircraft. And if you have Millie Elliott, why not put Millie Elliott in there? And she's my Javelin pilot at the moment, but in she goes. And with that recalculation, you can see the manoeuvrability rating goes up to 96. And when I do the post-build effects, this is the pilot that I will have in the aircraft, so you can see what's going on. But remember, those numbers will be indicative. Let's go and do that now. Here we have the spreadsheet showing the difference between the base characteristics of the aircraft and after the choices I've made in terms of equipment, consumables, pilot. Even delivery or camouflage has an effect here. I'll explain that in a minute. So the stock figures for the M20 are shown in columns C and D. You'll have seen these before if you watch the aircraft statistics section of the video. Then the effects of all my choices, the post-build effects, are shown in columns E and F. The difference between the two in absolute terms is shown in column G and in percentage terms in column H. How have we got here? Well, if we talk about equipment, we've got a gun sight which is uncalibrated, therefore the technological level is 400. The lightweight wing frame and a lightweight power unit, both fully calibrated, so the technological level for both of those is 478. Then an uncalibrated polished skin, so technological level 400. We've also got, something I didn't mention before, a chrome livery or camouflage or paint scheme on the aircraft, which confers extra cruise speed. Incidentally, those chrome skins, the UI fails to pick up the increase in cruise speed, but I include it in my calculations. And finally, we have a special pilot in the aircraft. It's Millie Elliott, and she has the following skills. Aerodynamics expert, that's the standard one that improves the functioning of speed and manoeuvrability equipment by 40%. A unique skill, Air Acrobat, which replaces the aerobatics skill that you normally find in pilots. It produces double the effect on manoeuvrability of the aerobatics expert skill. Battle tested, which confers some useful injury and damage resistance effects, and I'm beginning to like that skill. Engine Guru 1, improving the thrust of the engine, which improves the acceleration, and Marksman 1, improving the accuracy of the guns. Millie Elliott comes with a second special skill, Tornado Master, but as you might guess from the name, that's limited to being useful only on the Tornado. Won't apply to the M20 or any other aircraft. What effects have we managed on the guns? It's all about accuracy. Let's deal with the auto angle first. We had a pretty decent 4 degrees on it as stock. We've got that out to 4.4 degrees, so you can be off target by 4.4 degrees. You'll still hit that target. Dispersion angle, 0.8. Bullets spread out quite quickly as they leave the muzzle of the gun. Now it's down to 0.65. They spread out less quickly, which means more of them will hit at greater distance. So these are useful accuracy effects. As this is a manoeuvrability build, we are going to have some adverse effects on survivability. Specifically, we've lost hit points. If you do the calculation there, it says 16, but it's actually 17. There's a rounding error there. So that's a 6.6 decrease in the hit points. We started with a pretty decent pool for a fighter, but either way, if you get yourself in front of something big guns, a heavy fighter, you're going to melt away fairly quickly. We've lost 1 point of damage resistance. We have lost no points on the fire resistance, which is excellent. I can happily fit a first aid and dressing package into one of those consumable slots and not worry about not being able to fight a fire. Because of the polished skin, because of Millie Elliott, because of the chrome paint scheme, we have an improvement in the airspeed. And what we have, the rating's gone up to 37. This is coming entirely from the cruise speed, which has gone up to a fairly healthy 242 miles an hour, 31 miles an hour increase, 14.9%. That makes the aircraft a bit slippier through the air, which is nice because that cruise speed is otherwise a little bit low. Certainly the stock aircraft feels a bit sluggish. No effect on the boost maximum speed. No loss of boost, which is good news. And of course, we can't do anything about the dive speed. Not that you're going to be doing a great deal of diving in this aircraft anyway. Now, with the manoeuvrability build, what we want to see is a handsome effect on the manoeuvrability, and we've got it. It's gone up to 96. That's a 20% improvement in the rating. We've got the turn time down to 7.9 seconds from the stock of 9. We've got the roll rate up to a usable 154, much better than that slow 120, typical on British aircraft. And we've also got an improvement of 16.2% on the yaw manoeuvrability. Now, remember, I haven't worked in manoeuvrability onto the airframe as much as is possible. These are indicative figures. You can do a little bit better. If we look at the altitude performance, no change in the maximum optimum altitude, of course, but we have managed to get the climb rate improved by 11 feet per second to 332. Probably not going to notice that. Other effects that are only noted as a byline in the UI, there's a 10% improvement of in the chance of fire coming from the guns, and a 5% improvement in the chance of criticals from the guns. Survivability. This comes from battle tested, and this is why I'm beginning to appreciate this skill in these days of lots and lots of criticals coming from everywhere, including bots, not just enemy players. 25% extra damaged plane control ability, which might just be useful if you're fighting something that's got lower manoeuvrability than you and makes the mistake of thinking because you've got damage control surface it can now outturn you. We've got a 13% improvement in the pilot injury resistance. That's coming from battle tested and also from a bones characteristic on the gun sight. However, the wings are more likely to take critical damage by 7%, and the engine is more likely to take critical damage by 12%. The airspeed, other effects, 11.5% acceleration improvement in the acceleration and dive, which probably won't really matter to you, and some small improvements in acceleration, both with boost and without boost. With boost it's 3%, without boost it's 4.4%. And that makes this a viable turn fighter, provided you pick your battles. Don't get into battles, turn fights with specialised Japanese planes, Yak-1s, or even potentially Spitfires. Try and use slash and burn techniques on those. If they're not specialised, you're probably going to be competitive with them and you can have a ding-dong battle. Right. Let's go and see how the plane did indeed perform in a battle. The map for the forthcoming battle is Peripheral Mission. It's the Snowy Shore variant. This is a 5-sector map, and the sectors are laid out in the 5 spots of a die configuration. There is a central repair base, which by far is the most important sector on the map, both tactically and strategically. Tactically, it gives you easy access to all of the other sectors. Strategically, it allows you to spawn, which is very useful if you want to get to a far-flung sector. You can get a new aircraft of the same tier if you want to change, and you can also get full repairs. This is, of course, if you own this sector. And surrounding it are 4 garrisons. Now, I think there are 2 ways of approaching this. It depends on the order of battle. If you have a team that can dominate the centre, then take the airbase and look to hold at least 2 of the garrisons, probably your 2 local garrisons, for more time than the enemy does. There is an alternative. It depends a little bit on the enemy complying, of course. If they are strong in the airbase and swarm it, but aren't willing to leave it, you can try and take at least 3, if not all 4 of the other garrisons, something I call the periphery tour, and then you force them out. They generally all disperse in different directions, then they become easier to deal with. On the order of battle, I'm top tier. We have a flight with a Spitfire 1 and a P-38F, neither specialised, but we do have a specialised MiG-3 as well. These are all at Tier 5. Down at Tier 4, we have an I-16 late modification and a Dornier 17Z bomber. The enemy has 1 fewer Tier 5s, already an advantage. There's a specialised HE-100D-1. Kind of underestimated that aircraft in this battle. You'll see why. They've got a PE-2 bomber, which could be very good for that periphery tour approach that I mentioned, an SE-100, and then they have a flight at Tier 4, a BF-109B, which is specialised. That's pretty good. That can certainly hold its own in Tier 5 battles. An A6M1 and another I-16 late modification. So, although we have the extra Tier 5, given the specialisation and given the types of aircraft, it's fairly even. We've probably got the edge. Here we go, into battle. We're going straight for that important sector, the airbase in the centre, and this is a natively recorded replay file. You'll be able to see the reticle accurately aimed and me looking around. Now, there are some threats on the enemy team, but what I'm hoping is that I can establish myself at this sector, and probably stay there for most of the game. Now, of course, if the enemy starts taking garrisons and we don't have enough of them, I'll have to leave. We shall see. Coming down on the first ADAs, trying to get these machine guns to bear. Keeping an eye on the arrows around the reticle to see if there are any looming threats. Of course, you can also use that to orientate your turn towards your target. Avoid the multi-roll. Easily outmaneuver it, and also manage to keep up with it, which is good. Shoot that for preference, and now move to the ADA that interposed itself between myself and that original target. And now we see a BF-109. Fortunately, it wasn't concentrating on me. My team have got the sector, that's good news. I want to get rid of this player as quickly as possible. Especially as I've got threats, big arrows around the reticle telling me that I've got threats addressing me. So we have a specialised fighter of some description on me. And that's the HE-100D-1, and it's a turn build, which surprised me. This aircraft is one I would build for speed. I didn't expect to find a full turn build on it. Now, why would you do this? Well, you're hoping to come across players in turn fighters who actually don't know how to turn their aircraft, and you can surprise them with this one. All you need is one player who knows what they're doing in a more agile aircraft, and you're in trouble. I'm that player. So we dispose of the HE-100D-1 with more trouble than I expected. To be fair, he made it difficult. Now we're getting after the A6M1. And I'm pleased to have got that one out, because even unspecialised, that's going to be something that's tough to take out in a turn fight. Now we begin to look around and see that with two sectors also, we need to keep an eye on our garrisons. One of our local garrisons is actually under threat, which means that the enemy could go up 3-2, in which case staying at the airfield is not going to be viable for the entire game. At the moment, I'm happy to clear out the threats there. See the BF-109 again. This time he spots me, but he's so damaged, I'm able to go ahead on with him and take him out. I know that I've got the repair base, so even if he damages me, I can probably then pick up repairs. And I see that HE-100D-1, and he gets a fire. And then the ram finishes me off, and he's still alive. That fire was the difference there. Otherwise, I would have, with my hit points, I would have rammed him out of the game, but I hadn't spotted the fire at the time and wasn't aware that I was bleeding health to it. So we spawn back in at the airfield, which we've nearly lost, and we're also 3-2 down. This is a critical moment in the game. If we lose this airfield, we could probably go on to lose the entire game. I want to clear out threats here as quickly as possible. That A6M1 is really deadly, so I'm focusing that first. Fortunately, he's focusing on a kill that he wants to make. My team have managed to claw back health onto the sector, so I've got the time to do it, and now I want to clear out the BF-109 for the third time. There he goes. Find the I-16 late modification, doing some groundwork, and therefore at a serious disadvantage to my attacking aircraft. Now we find the HE-100D-1 again, and in a turn fight he loses. Uses the control tower pretty well. I set him on fire just to return the compliment. He puts that out, so he's got a fire extinguisher. Managed to avoid the control tower again, and he's flying well. He's doing everything he can to throw me off, and probably he would have thrown off a less experienced player. Unluckily for him, I'm not that player. But we are in an awkward situation here. We're 3 sectors to 2 down. Now it looks like we may capture one quickly, and I'm hoping that we will, and go 3-2 up. And the airfield is under constant threat, so I don't feel that I can leave just yet. And as I speak, there goes the 3rd sector, giving us the advantage again. The I-16 late modification swings round in front of me. That's an easy kill. The enemy's determined efforts here at the airfield mean that I feel that I'm not free to go leaves, and we've now just lost one of our garrisons again. But it's a close battle, this. It's a mixture of defending this airfield and the enemy using the peripheral tour, at least getting 3 garrisons out of 4. It's on an edge, a knife edge, and at the moment they've got the advantage. But again, if they take this airfield, they will have the significant advantage. For the fourth time, the HE-100D-1 comes in and loses a fight with me. Sorry, that's the third time he's lost it. The fourth fight that we've had, he won one of them by getting a fire and a ram on me. BF-109 comes in, straight for me. Fortunately, doesn't kill me. And now in the turn fight, he's an easy kill for me. The Blenheim's within compass, so I begin to shoot that. Don't want that dropping bombs here if I can avoid it. Mind you, upside down, it's not going to be dropping any bombs except on itself. The maintenance shed is still intact, I can pick up repairs. Now it looks like we may capture another sector, but at this point I am seriously beginning to think of going off and trying to take one of the other garrisons off the enemy. Couldn't get repairs because the enemy was too close. Look at the Yak 7 because I don't get sniped by it. Realise there's a threat coming from the right. Avoid. And it's another turn fight with the HE-100D-1. And this time he realises a turn fight is not what's going to save him, so he tries a really good tactic here. He's flipping the aircraft about, rolling it, trying to throw my aim off. My guns eventually overheat and I haven't actually killed him. However, because he's got the turn build, he hasn't got the speed to get away from me. And eventually I will get him, and now he makes a tactical error. He flies it into the sector, and I kill him, and it advances our capture of this garrison. And in the meantime, my team have finally managed to capture more garrisons than the enemy. Here's the A6M1, and I said this was unspecialised, so I felt I could take it on. It turns out to be a really close battle. I had to use every ounce of knowledge that I had to stay in this battle, particularly once the air defence aircraft took my wing out. Brief tale from Dilly there, making an appearance in a video for the first time for a while. This is a good battle with the A6M1. I'm really doing everything I know to be able to get my turns inside his. This is not specialised, this aircraft. This pilot is flying really well. Just got the edge over him. And if I didn't have Millie Elliott in this plane, I'm not sure I would have had the edge. And at the end, he finally succumbs into the wrong by making the wrong turn, and I do knock him over. And that gives us 5 sectors. And what has been a hard-fought battle has probably been resolved in our favour. So as it turns out, I probably didn't need to go and capture that sector, and I didn't intend to anyway because the HE-100D-1 dragged me there, but it's all worked out very well for us. Hard fought battle, very quick 19,000 personal points, and a few medals as well. Let's review the outcome of this battle. And we can see from the centre, it's a 4 chevron battle, or a Grade 2 fighter. That grossed 179,157 credits, silver if you prefer. Just under 60,000 of that came from a premium account bonus. If we drop into the message box, we can see there were repair costs of 925 credits. I was using prepaid consumables, that is, I bought them in advance in a sale for half price. If we look at the combat experience, we have 2,279 at base, premium account bonus of 1,139, other bonuses 5,810, that's from weekend missions, that's why it's an inflated figure. And on the free experience we have 404 base, premium account bonus 56, this was the first win of the day, it's a ×3, so again some inflation there. 1 token, that came from an Akamatsu medal, which is there, but there's also a Winged Legend. On the personal score tab, we can see that one of the class-specific missions is complete, 4/5 complete on the second one, and only 2/5 complete on the third one. Not enough capture points because I was defending the airfield so much, and that's why this is only a 4 chevron battle. Another couple of ticks here, or one more tick here, and one more tick here, and we would have had the 5 chevrons. Personal points 19,360, sectors captured 2, aerial targets destroyed 16, 2,626 damage, with 19 critical hits coming from the guns. Lost the aircraft once, as mentioned before, capture points 640, unsurprisingly the larger portion of that is 480 for defending sectors, 160 for attacking sectors. Have a look on the team score tab. we can see that that was enough for first place by both personal points and chevrons of my team. Would have been first place across both teams as it happens. Some decent contributions from the MiG-3, the P-38F, and indeed the I-16, who didn't get many chevrons but has got quite a lot of personal points. They're doing work outside of sectors, but could have been important work all the same. On the enemy team, decent contribution from the bomber. Didn't see that. Interesting flying from the HE-100D1, quite challenging to knock down. A6M1, also quite challenging to knock down. Some good efforts on the enemy team as well. There you go, Trapper73, a full review of the Miles M20. And you can find links to Trapper73's Twitch and YouTube channels down below. This is an agile light fighter if you build it well, but in common with the old-fashioned premiums in World of Warplanes, it's a little bit worse than its tech tree equivalents. If you get it for free, you can have a few fun flights in it and then move on. Well, I hope you found that useful. If you did, please come and see my future content. So until then, this is the Noble Q signing out.